thing during COVID to watch that is very stress reducing is Pasta Grannies on YouTube.
Pasta Grannies.
Yeah, Pasta Grannies.
I love Pasta Grannies.
Like, I was interested in making my own pasta before watching Pasta Grannies, but now after watching Pasta Grannies, I was like, here's another pasta we can try. I can't remember what the exact name is, but there's a pasta I like that's called the Priest's Noose or something like that, or the Strangled Priest.
Lovely.
And it's like it's really great. It's like a little twisty Thai pasta, and it looks like a little like noose.
Cool.
The priest choker, strozza preti. It's known as the priest strangler.
Nice.
Priest strangler.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
it's fun.
Well, speaking of strangling priests, welcome to You're No Fun
that is a good
Anymore.
thing.
There's violence against priests in this. Absolutely.
There's extreme violence against priests in this. I'm Randall Meal.
I'm Dana Weber.
I'm Bryce Weinert.
I'm Alexandra Stoilis.
And I'm Helen Stoilis.
And the film we are going to be going over is The Filth
Element.
No, that's the Triple X porn parody.
The Fifth Element. Or, in space, no one can hear you dump your wife for your lead actress mid-production.
Uh-huh. Your severely underaged wife.
Yeah, a little bit.
250 years into the future.
Any survivors?
The world is on the edge of destruction.
Do you understand Big Trouble?
And the only way to save it
Me? Protect you?
Okay.
is to find the fifth element. Bruce Willis. The Fifth Element. Rated PG-13.
Content warning. The selected feature may contain scenes depicting the following: attempted genocide, murder, general misogyny, brief nudity, intense oral sex, ableist humor, cartoonish space violence, and future colonialism. And now, back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
So, it is early summer 1997. The grunge hangover is fully set in post-1994, and American popular culture has drifted into a morass of clashing microcosms, kind of like a particle collider. You're talking about 70s revival blending in with Asian and Indian influences, re-embracing of the feminine and tailored cuts, away from the baggy and the generally schlubby thing that basically lives in my closet all the time. A wide acceptance of subculture as an identifier. So now you're getting a very clear moniker of raver, goth, hip-hop, skater, punk, etc., etc. They have their own spaces to thrive, shattering the quote-unquote alternative blanket label, embracing all of these things before. Items like Delia's catalog is only 3 years old.
Oh,
It
Delia's.
is breaking out. The ubiquitous Fashion Mag catalog mails 20 million catalogs this year, and it is set to make 60 million in annual sales.
Did anybody else do Delia's poses, like Delia photo shoots in their hallways?
I dreamed of being able to order from Delia's, but my mother insisted that it was all just crap.
She was crap.
Which it probably was,
It
but
fell
I really
apart.
wanted a
fell
blow-up
apart.
couch, guys.
I had one. They were terrible. They would pop as soon as you sat on them.
Ugh.
Speaking of 70s revival, for the first time in over a decade, the Star Wars films are back into theaters with the special editions, re-solidifying their box office reign from January into the spring. People are mourning the tragic death of Biggie Smalls. His number one hit, Hypnotize, that's off the uncannily titled Life After Death, still having massive airplay. He is also, by the way, one of only 5 artists at the time to have a number one hit posthumous. I think he's still the only artist to have done it twice. Girl power has arrived in full force. No longer just the caterwauling Gen X singer-songwriters. No. We have Toni Braxton holding the number one slot for 3 straight months. You have the Spice Girls beginning their domination with multiple singles off their first hit album. And their groundbreaking announcement at Cannes Film Festival that they are going to begin Spice World the movie. And Aqua is about to break the charts with their infectious hit Barbie Girl. The internet is still in its infancy. We're talking about maybe just a little over 1 million sites as of June of this year. That is up from only 100,000 the previous year. And how you access that? Netscape Navigator on your whopping 33.6 kilobytes per second modem. IBM's Deep Blue defeated chess master Gary Kasparov In a 6-game rematch from February of the previous year, previewing a future of artificial intelligence, whether or not that's good or bad, I guess that's up to you. In short, 1997 is an amazing year to be talking about science fiction. We're here to talk about one in particular, The Fifth Element, released May 7th of 1997. It came to a fairly big success. It held the #1 spot for 2 weeks upon opening. And eventually pulled over $263 million worldwide. It became the highest grossing film to come out of France, a title it would hold for over a decade, only being beaten by The Untouchables in 2011. There's a lot of reasons why this film has lasted as long as it did, and that's what we're going to discover, because we're here to figure out, is it still fun anymore?
It's one of Alex's favorite movies.
My sister named her cat Lilu Dallas Multipass.
One
that
of
the
my
full name?
favorite, I quote Lilu, and it's not really a quote because it's one word, but anytime I have like a big plate of chicken or like rotisserie chicken, I go, chicken! Exactly in that
Chicken.
way, because it is my favorite thing. And the scene with the diva is one of my favorite scenes in
Yes.
all of
Oh,
movies.
We'll
absolutely.
get there.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
doing
just
the
like-
dance right now.
Exactly like that.
I'm still pretty sure I'm gonna sing that one day.
I mean, to start off with that, Eric Serra, this is probably the most Eric Serra soundtrack I have ever heard, as he was kind of a king, especially coming out of the early 90s and into this phase, because the sounds in this film are absolutely incredible. And
They
it
really
just-
are. That kind of Middle Eastern
Mhm.
hip hop influenced.
It's a lot of everything.
music.
It feels like kitchen sink in a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
times. He's really amazing at just like bringing that to, and I think I kind of feel like it really is a case of lightning in a bottle for a lot of
Mhm.
this.
I didn't realize it was 1997. For some reason, in my mind, it always seemed a little later, like 1999, 2000. I don't know why.
And I was,
Maybe it's that the whole futuristic,
Yeah.
vibe of it was really just so it really kind of propelled it a little more forward in my imagination than it actually was.
I'm very, very much associated with my senior year of high school. So I remember,
Do you?
yeah, because it was like the week that I graduated from high school that it came out. So that was, my friends and I all went to see it as a graduation thing.
See, I don't think I saw it until I was in college. So until like freshman or sophomore year
Yeah.
of college, I don't think I saw it.
I was trying to figure out, it wasn't based off of a comic book or anything. It was
this
just
is-
its own story,
But
right?
This is my fun fact because I afterwards was looking it up. I've always, I'll be honest, I do not enjoy the writing as much as other people do. I enjoy
Yeah.
the movie. I enjoy the look and feel. I do not enjoy the writing. And I was trying to figure out why. And then I went and looked at a review that Roger Ebert had written about the movie, which I think was really on point, which his reviews usually were. But he pointed out the movie was actually written by Luc Besson when he was a teenager. And it very much feels like something that was written by a teenager, where these plot holes are just all over the goddamn place. It's still like super creative and fun and beautiful to look at. But the plot definitely reads like it was written by a teenage boy.
But it was definitely an original plot. And when we were watching it, I was like, the filmography, the costumes, it's just out of nowhere.
It's
like
original.
it's so
It's really-
original.
yeah.
Like, and I was like, when you compare that to movies today, where it's everything is based off of a Marvel or DC comic book, or like a book that was written already, or play, it was just like, oh, I remember when movies used to be something new.
But there are movies out there since that have tried.
Yes,
to do
totally.
this, like Jupiter Ascending, which is just
A mess.
a mess start to finish. But it was really trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think really it's the look and feel and sound that make it what it is.
So I grew up watching Time Bandits.
Oh,
yeah.
And I feel like this movie has the same like chaotic, visceral, all this stuff feels random and then it comes together in the end feeling that Time Bandits has. And I was in high school when I watched this, and it was before I got into comic books and video games in general, geekery that way. But I just really love this movie, and it makes sense watching it now that I'm like, oh, of course I love graphic novels and comic books. Of course I love video games, because they all have the same kind of feel as Fifth Element does.
Yeah, Luc Besson had said that he had always wanted to make a version of Valerian and Laureline, which he ended up making, much later in his career as Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. This definitely pulls so much from that kind of influence of the comics that he read when he was younger, which is, you know, why I think a lot of that stuff when he was a teenager stuck so much. I mean, so much so he did actually hire the comic artist to do the production design. I'm gonna butcher these names. I'm really terrible at French, but comic artist Jean Girard, who did Metal Hurlant.
Well, I'm not judging you. My French is horrible.
Well, otherwise known in America as heavy metal. That started coming around in the mid 70s and then got to the States in the late 70s, really kind of came into its own form. And then, of course, Jean-Claude Mézières, sure, but he was one of the creators of the Valerian and Laurel and Flame, so much so that he actually has a quote when he got hired to do some of the art design. I believe he said, hold on, let me find it, because I want to get this absolutely right. The co-creator of Valerian and Laureline asked Besson, quote, "Why are you doing this shitty movie? Why don't you just do Valerian?" That was what he told Luc Besson when he handed him the script. And
wow.
But, you know,
leave it to the French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to his credit, he did finally get around to doing Valerian.
Yeah.
And the Fifth Element.
Which was it? I never saw Valerian. Was it?
Neither did I.
It's overly long and it's messy. I think
Yeah.
Fifth Element is a much better movie.
Yes. I think because he had a lot of time, and they were going to start shooting in 1992 for this film, which is, you know, okay, so we're just going to get into this. The original cast for this, Mel Gibson.
What? Oh, no.
Yeah. He was courted for Corbin Dallas. He kind of waffled on it for 3 months. And then finally, you know, when things started lining up, they were like, okay, we're also looking at Julia Roberts as Lilu.
Weird.
Wow.
But
this made Mila's career, right? Like she wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She was a model before this.
She'd been in smaller things, but this is like a big role. So the real fun part about this is the big one that never got actually cast back again and should be entered in our, what I guess we could call what could have been Hall of Fame, is Prince as the role of Ruby.
Obviously.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely who he was based on.
But he wouldn't have done it on the same level of like outrageousness that it needed. He would have taken it too seriously.
Yeah, he would have been chill.
Yeah, he would have been so chill.
Yeah.
You need that Chris Tucker energy. I think he's great.
I think this made Chris Tucker's career too,
Yeah, I
right?
think
It absolutely did. And for the inevitable remake, Kevin Hart. Obvious.
Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Kevin Hart, I don't think would embrace the camp like Chris Tucker did. You know, like
I
he
think
wouldn't.
Kevin Hart based half of his persona on that role, on Ruby Rhod. I stand by that. Kevin Hart's about my age. I am almost positive he saw Fifth Element in the theaters and was like, yes, that is who I am.
Yeah, but he's got a lot of masculinity issues, Kevin Hart, you know, where I don't think he would wear a low-cut gown to the opera like Chris Tucker did.
That gown is, his clothing was phenomenal.
The lipstick, the hairstyles, the whole thing. At one point when he's going down on that air stewardess, Alex was like, how is his hair not getting in the way?
Maybe he's using his hair.
That's what I was wondering. And I was like, what is happening? Like the hair is just not.
It's great. It's fantastic.
What is?
I love the little buns that are very, speaking of Delia, they're very Delia's hairdo.
Well, I mentioned this to Randall when we were watching it yesterday. I'm so impressed that they gave Ruby Rhod so many what you would consider stereotypically gay elements.
Yeah.
But they made him kind of like
super heterosexual,
or at least pansexual, like, but like
totally
just super horny for anything. And like he has like those flamboyantly gay elements with, but he's explicitly not gay.
Because he was Prince. He was Prince.
Sure.
Ruby Rhod is Prince.
He said in an interview where he was kind of modeling it after, you know, a little mix of Prince, a little mix of Michael Jackson, a little bit, you know, he's taking all of these super hypersexualizing superstars and kind of blending them into this absolutely dynamite, you know, portrayal. Like, it is, talk about scene stealing. Holy
oh my God.
Alex says chicken. I go when I want somebody to leave me alone.
Super green. Well, I mean, since we're already talking about this film really owes so much to the incredible work of Jean-Paul Gaultier.
Or real.
Yeah.
I mean, the costumes are incredible.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Oldman's whole look is incredible.
Still trying to figure out what that plastic thing on his head is.
Yeah, what it's for.
Like what the purpose is.
I didn't notice until this watching how Corbin Dallas's orange tank top has back cutouts.
I think I have that tank top. I put in my notes. I'm almost positive I have that tank top.
So the Corbin Dallas look is essentially the opposite of Lilu's look, because her look was always like stripy down the front so you could see cleave, and his was always stripy down the back so you could see back muscles.
But I'm like, why don't have more guys have back cutouts? Because guys like generally have decent looking back muscles.
Yeah,
girls.
it's not. Yeah, I thought it was great.
I'm a huge Bruce Willis fan.
Yeah.
So every time he comes on, I'm like, oh.
Wait, I'm waiting for Dana to thumbs down.
No, I was waiting for you guys to start thumbs up in Chris Tucker, and then I was going to have a problem.
Oh, Chris
no.
Tucker. Chris Tucker's
I fully support Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't think I could handle Chris Tucker in this movie. Like, I think he is on a level so far above me. Like,
over you, right?
Yeah.
I think
you allow it to happen.
Right, like you don't get an opinion on the matter. Like, it just, if it happens to you, you're going to be changed.
Force of nature.
Yeah, I think with Bruce Willis, I feel okay about it because I remember him from Moonlighting when he was just kind of balding and schlubby.
Yeah.
So it's okay for me to be okay with him.
I got you.
And
you're tapping into the Moonlighting.
And he's also
like the action hero.
Hey, Addison is a personal favorite of mine as well. So,
Bruce Willis has just that look, and he's like, it's that 90s look of the guy who's kind of buff, but also kind of dad bod.
Yeah, he was
and it's just like
buff.
the arms are built, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, those are some nice looking arms.
Right.
But then like the rest of him is like, oh, okay, he's just like average guy looking, with some nice arms.
He was pretty buff in this one.
I do like that he did get to exercise a little bit of his comedic chops, because he gets horribly underutilized for that, and he's got a great sense of timing. And when he gets into those like exaggerated moments, he is really hilarious.
That's the one thing that I really appreciate about this movie, and the one that I always associate it with is Demolition Man, because I feel like they both took this really smart comedic approach so that it's not all action and all serious exposition. It's just fun. And I think that both of those movies, they figured out the fine line between the action movie and the fun.
I think the action as well, like watching it now, the action scenes, like especially Mila's, are fun and funny, like when she's fighting those aliens and she like pulls back, knocks one in the face and then knocks the other one out, you know? And some of it, the choreography, you're a little bit like, okay, this looks a little cheesy now, but it's still really well
orchestrated.
Like, it's really well orchestrated, choreographed, but it's like fun. It's got like a scrappy feel to it, even though it's not like totally low budget by any stretch of the imagination,
Is Lilu one of the early waifus? Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
She is, yeah. Where's the muscles?
Like, that was so big in the 90s, like the little waifish elven girls who can kick anybody's ass.
Yep.
That's a very common element in a lot of Luc Besson movies, of the inexperienced, young, small girl / woman. Yeah, that gets thrown into these, crazy thing. And of course they always end up being, massive kick-ass killers, right up till today with his last film that came out last year. What was it, Anna? Which actually shares a lot with this, because he works with a lot of the same people, same cinematographer, same composer, and he's got a really great look to a lot of this. And I think this was one of those things that I know he kind of wanted to do it bigger, but I think what they achieved in this is really impressive.
Totally. Like even the space scenes, like the whole CGI, like out in space scenes, I thought were really good. Like they held up. The hurtling ball of fire was pretty good, when they shoot lasers into it.
The chocolate syrup on the forehead.
The chocolate syrup on the forehead did not hold up. Why is it chocolate syrup? Why is it not red? Why is it not watercolor?
Why isn't it coming out of his head? Because when he wipes it away, there's nothing there.
Yeah, where is it coming from? It doesn't.
That's what my point is. I was just like, when he was like pulling it off his face and he's looking at his hands like, where did that come from?
Like, is it just spontaneous evil on his forehead?
Somebody making Sundays? Is there a Sunday bar somewhere? Where's the ice cream social? Like, what's happening?
Just make it drip out of his eye. I know it's done. I know it's like
They really wanted to use that plastic thing for something.
It happens
Maybe
to a
it's
couple of
coming
the
out
characters.
his hairline.
Well,
That
yeah, but
one.
I mean, they had it bubble up from under there, like his brain was literally leaking. That's a whole other thing. This is just like, oh man, you got weird drippy chocolate syrup on your
Oh, is
head.
there a leak up here?
I'm just gonna blame Picasso on that one. Picasso, by the way, is the name of the tiny, weird, neon-colored elephant creature.
I
that
love
lives-
the elephant. I want the
I
elephant.
didn't know it had a name. How
That's
did you
true.
find out its name?
There's a whole extensive thing. If you go to the VFX blog, they go into really, really in depth on this. But yeah, they had names. They had a team of puppeteers that tried to make it as loving and as animated as possible
Oh.
for reasons.
It was a
Picasso
great
was
pet
too good
Muppet
for
elephant.
it.
Yes.
He was a big squish. He was adorable. When he's looking dolefully up at Gary Oldman, choking on a cherry, it's like, I can't do anything, buddy. Sorry.
It's so sad because he just realizes how ineffectual he actually is.
Oh.
But that
He is all of us.
yeah.
So the one other thing I found kind of low rent, and I feel like this happens every time I watch this, the robot Muppet ducks,
Ugh.
the alien.
Armadillos. I think they're armadillos.
I call them steampunk armadillos.
They're different.
They're
I
totally
got
different.
robot Muppet ducks, but armadillo steampunk works too. It bothers me. It bothers me every time I see them. Why
They're
do they
very
come
clean.
in that form?
They've got a return to Oz kind of feel to them. don't
Yes.
they?
So,
Oddly enough, so Monique Brown was the key animatronic designer for that, and they're called the Mondashowans.
Yeah.
And she had worked for the Henson Shop,
I knew.
stuff with Babe. She worked on Lucasfilm with Willow and Phantom Menace. So there's a lot of connection to that. And they had this original idea of using these big clunky things because they wanted it, go big or go home kind of thing. They wanted it to seem completely different than what you would interpret as an alien. And I think it's very effective for what that is. But the people they had to get to puppeteer these giant creatures had to fit a specific body type. So you're talking about anywhere from 6'7" to 6'9".
Oh wow.
Wow.
Just getting them to shuffle around was very, very difficult. So I think there's a reason why the shots of them are very limited, because it takes 3 hours to get into the setup. Then you have to get 6 or 7 of them into a line, and then they have to walk blind because they can't see out of the costumes because they're covered up with the weird heads.
Oh wow.
I do want to say, I'm going to disagree with you, Dana. I like them for their purpose. Like, they're who I imagine an alien race that's a keeper of, like, ancient knowledge would look like. Like, they really care. They're clearly, like well, no, I just meant, like, they're in tune with the past. They're not willing to change. Why everybody else is getting sleek and spacey, they're maintaining their walking duck.
I have no
So
problem with this
applauding.
punk element. That is not my question. My question is why duck? I don't
They're very
understand why they went
like-
for the duck head.
I didn't think they actually look like that underneath the armor.
They don't.
Right?
No, they say that at one point that's like the shell.
That's just what's
Again,
outside.
why is their like representational suit of armor a duck?
Maybe they worshiped the armadillo in their
Or-
ancient space
or the-
religion,
I could have used the backstory.
Geese are very, very domineering and scary. So, like,
Yeah.
if you see a goose, you'll run
Yeah.
away
Yeah,
because
exactly. You
they're
don't wanna
going to
mess with
chase
those.
you.
But
Those
then
things are
they're
ugly.
the good guys. They're the good robots. Why are
I
we
know.
running away from
But
the
they're
good
still
robot?
warriors.
But they're still war protectors, so
Yeah.
they're supposed to look scary even if they're not.
I'm just
Well, and I assume
my
Lee
question.
looks like whatever culture she's born into, created by. So if she wasn't on Earth, she would have looked like a giant walking armadillo duck. But since she
Yeah.
happened to be created on Earth, she looks human.
I mean, that goes to that whole carrying like 200,000 strands of DNA
Right.
or whatever the
Yeah, she could look like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a limitless being. So she's not just like the supreme being for human. She's like the supreme being for wherever she happens to be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about her for a second. I
Sure.
actually, because I remember underappreciating, I think, her performance other times that I've seen this because she's Mila Jovovich and that's who she is. But watching it now, she really did a good job.
Oh, totally.
Threw herself into
She
it.
threw herself
Like
into it.
she
She
went.
spoke her gibberish like
Yep.
it was fluent.
Totally.
She really, like, she took in the moment. She was great as a little kid. She was great as a fighter.
When she like wakes up in that little tube, like you're like, oh, she's a trapped animal.
Yeah.
And then that whole kind of hunching over and ready to pounce thing, like she really threw herself into it. I was really impressed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the being able to talk gibberish, way better than Jodie Foster ever did. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
For free.
Well, that was that whole, Luc Besson giving her a list of like, here are these words, and then they would make up other words, and they would basically just communicate to each other.
Yeah.
In this, weird grooming activity.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't have, maybe not so much the baby voice, but
I mean, she's 19 when they were shooting this. And by the way, Bruce Willis was 40.
Watching it this time, that I never noticed before, is how little Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich have screen time together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, their romance comes out of fucking nowhere, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, she literally falls from the sky into his cast.
And the one moment they have it's like an actual romantic moment is when he's treating her like she's a 5-year-old and wrapping her in a blanket, and then all of a sudden he wants to make out with her. It's Luc Besson icky.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, there's definitely some icky moments in this, and there's definitely some like questionable moments in this.
Yeah.
I do still love that scene when he moves in for the kiss and she pulls his gun on him.
Now, never without my permission.
Exactly.
It's like, I figured that's what that meant.
It's a very like, no, she needs to stand her ground, and women should be able to stand their ground, and I appreciated that.
I did. All the undervaluing of her, all the instances where people assume that the supreme being is going to be a man, where they talk about her before she even shows up as a guy. And then she shows up and she kicks all of the ass. She just takes all of the ass and she kicks it.
I think that's the thing. That's where I run into trouble with Luc Besson, though, is that he is really good at creating these very powerful female characters, but then he fetishizes the crap out of them.
Well, but then they get a little bit undercut, like when that general was like, let's take pictures for the archive. Yeah, like, no, did you need that? You didn't need that.
No, that's real creepy,
You didn't need that creepy, no.
And then all they care about is that she's also like beautiful and she has nice tits.
Mm-hmm. Like the joke about her pulling off her top in front of everybody could have probably fallen on the cutting room floor and wouldn't have hurt anything.
Yeah.
Well, multiple times they played on that.
Yeah, you do that once, and then that's all you need to do that. But the fact that they do a callback to it, it's like, it's a little...
That's not necessary.
Yeah.
So it's a little moment, but they had that moment where the general shows up at Bruce Willis's house, and they're like, and this is going to be your wife, and he looks at her like...
Yes, exactly.
Can't possibly. She made like a very powerful...
The brick house, the lady with like the buns and the...
her name in the script was like Brunhilde or something.
Oh, definitely.
Well, no, I think it was Icebergen or something. It was something very, very obvious.
Written by a teenage boy.
Yes.
You don't know. She could be a wildcat.
Exactly.
You don't know.
But she's not like 5'9" and...
Exactly. Wayfish. She's not the wayfu.
And a lot of that is she's been listed in interviews because originally they wanted to shoot this in France, but with the budget and the amount of work that was going to need into production, they ended up shifting it to Pinewood Studios in Britain. And in an interview, she had talked about when she's wearing the Gaultier bondage adjacent outfit that he loves to do so much with his gender clashing pieces. She's was reminiscing about how on set getting like catcalls like in a professional setting, and like that's got to be pretty terrifying for a teenager.
So she was a model, so I'm sure she was used to it.
Sure, but
doesn't make it better.
Yeah, it's still one of those things that
I mean, with that cast, considering how many models were in that cast, it's just like throwaway characters.
That is very.
They probably all just.
Yep.
But each one of them had a great outfit.
They did. Everybody had good clothes.
Yep. Like the flight attendants, like those risky outfits.
Those are great.
Clothes and terrible, terrible haircuts.
Yeah.
To a person.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Did not suit them at all. Did not suit their faces in any way. It was just like the worst.
I think when Luc Besson went into this, he didn't want the drab and dreary science fiction that he, kind of seen and grown up with. I feel like this is very much anti-Blade Runner. Like this is a taking the future and then making it almost cartoonish by taking pieces that are modern and contemporary, but then also just like using weird stuff. And Gautier talks about this too. It's like, yeah, we'll just use rubber here. Like we're going to pull in this stuff that makes absolutely no sense. And then
Rubber shirts that look so uncomfortable.
Yes.
Oh,
So
everyone must have
sweaty.
been so sweaty on set.
I did like the use of sleevelessness. There's a lot of
There's
sleevelessness.
a lot of sleevelessness.
I also appreciated how militarized they made the police look.
Yeah, the police are almost prophetic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to the point, you know, and how they like react with the like, put your hands on the yellow dots
that everybody has painted in their apartments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just for that scene when they are inevitably going to be accosted by the police.
I am a meat popsicle. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, he draws a lot of class issues in this film, and I think that's intentional, but it also comes from, you know, being French, and they have a much more direct connection to, you know, direct action kind of things.
Yeah.
And there's actually a whole sequence when they're going to originally get onto the luxury cruiser, when, you know, they're doing the whole, no, I'm Corbin Dallas. No, I'm Corbin Dallas. So when they walk down there, you'll see like huge piles of trash.
Yeah.
They originally created all these creatures that were basically the underclass of this world, like aliens that were garbage collectors, and they were on strike. That's the reason why that there's a huge police presence there, and there's a huge amount of trash. But it just ended up, you know, getting cut because it was just like a lot of extra weirdness.
She makes a comment about excuse the mess, and you see in the background the huge pile of trash.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that I could see where he was going with this. Like Corbin Dallas is poor. He lives in, you know, he says, welcome to the 5,000 block, you know, very much in the guise of only people of a certain means can actually afford to live in certain areas kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you get a little subtle things that he puts in here. There's always a viewpoint of labor and workers in this film. Like, even though it's really uncomfortable when it comes to like race representation wise, the Asian guy that comes over and serves him food.
Randall, if I could talk about class for a second before we talk about racism. It occurs to me just now that the priest must be really, really rich then, because he has
a huge apartment. I thought the same thing,
with no like orange things.
Yeah.
Which is probably another statement, a subtle statement about organized religion and the protection of organized religion to like the French eye.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly lived in like a down at heels kind of building, you know, like his door seemed all banged up, but he had a lot of room, and he didn't have he didn't have the same kind of restrictions that most people had. You know, maybe it was like a derelict part of town.
I always just assumed that he, like the priest at the beginning, is the keeper of this information, which means that he's probably allowed certain things like this apartment and
luxuries.
Luxuries. Thank you.
Okay, now you can talk about racism.
And also another thing about class, it is, I mean, the big bad of the show, Gary Oldman, is a CEO. He's like the ultimate corporate overlord, right?
Yeah.
He has like who has made a deal with the ultimate evil.
Although someone should really, really point out to him that when the world gets blown up, he's not getting paid.
He's not getting paid. I don't get it.
I don't get his motivation.
His motivation is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, to inject a modern parable to this movie that is over 20 years old.
Yeah,
I can do math. You still have the same thing with like, how can you justify being a CEO of a major like fossil fuel company? You're gonna die, but you're gonna go out with being on top. I don't think they actually think they're ever gonna die. Like, I think that's that kind of mentality of like, as long as I'm on top, I live forever.
This may be like reading too much into things. He's clearly evil. I wonder if Mr. Shadow was attracted to him because he's the most evil person in the universe. And so he became Mr. Shadow's puppet, whether he wanted to or not.
I mean, just kind of like drawn.
So it wasn't like they were working together, but it was more like he's already a creature. He's like a familiar of Mr. Shadow because he's already evil.
But there's a point where he says on the phone to Mr. Shadow, you know, it was really difficult. It's been really difficult getting these stones. My fee has gone up. And it's like, what are you going to do with this money when the world is on fire? Like
that's my point.
Where are you going to spend this? You know, this fee that you've earned from the diabolical flaming ball of fire. Unless he doesn't know. Unless he doesn't know that he's directly dealing with the ball of fire.
No. He has a speech somewhere towards the middle, where he actually talks about knowing perfectly well where this is all leading. And he says basically he'll be the exception to the rule. But I think it's pretty clear he will not be the exception to the rule. When the planet goes boom, Gary Oldman will go big bada boom too.
Big bada boom.
Big bada boom. Bada boom big. Racism.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about racism.
Oh, yeah. There's some representation weirdness in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The cast that they brought together is a very eclectic mix of people.
Yeah.
You know, I love that Tricky's involved in this.
Yep.
He's got a wonderful kind of disarming smile, and he also looks like super confused about things. But, you know, people have pointed out that, you know, why is the majority of the Mangalores people of color? That is a little bit bizarre.
Yeah.
It's not total. You do see some of the others that are, you know, obviously bodybuilders, because that's the type that they needed to get the prosthetic suits and everything to make it look menacing and real. But yeah, there is some things that I kind of just, again, I have to go, well, that's French colonialism for you.
Yep,
So
definitely.
Point out that I'm pretty sure Corbin is Jewish because his mother is the most Jewish stereotype.
Oh, you're
all the
totally
Jewish
right,
stereotypes, which says to me Bruce Willis is supposed to be a member of the tribe.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
sure
can see that.
Besson was patting himself on the back for making a black president. He was like, I did that. Look at me.
Go
Look at me do
Zeus.
that.
That was Zeus.
Was that I'm trying to which came first, because I know
When did
Deep
Morgan
Impact
Freeman
was
first
around
play?
the same time.
That was Deep Impact.
I have to look this up. 1998. So no, it beat it by a year.
98.
Oh.
All right, well, there you go. It was the trendsetter then.
All future presidents are black, and all future vice presidents are women.
Yeah. I think there was another thing, you know, besides Luc Besson's predilection towards creating these basically La Femme Nikita kind of storylines. One of the things that I absolutely did not realize until, you know, watching this with a more critical eyes, how much of my personal editing style comes from his love of being able to cross-cut between conversations and moments and elements, and just juxtaposing multiple scenes and actors who aren't even in the same place together and make it feel so good.
Organic as well. I mean, going back to the opera
fight
diva, the opera diva scene
Mhm.
where it fights between her and Leilu fighting. It's just so good.
This scene is flawless. No,
Yeah.
there is nothing wrong with that scene. It is so
No,
Yeah.
it's the best.
So since we're going to talk about the diva in this case, that's actually his wife at the time,
really?
who's an accomplished actress on her own. She came in basically the weekend they lost their original actress, which was a model from Germany, I believe. In the interview, she had talked about how she basically said, look, I'll just step in. I didn't really want to do it, but we didn't have a choice. And then come Monday, nobody showed up. So she got suited up in the big blue outfit, and they started doing rehearsals to kind of get that dance. And they had to like teach her in the process of doing this, like all the rehearsals about how to sing. So it doesn't look like she's just lip syncing, like trying to perform like a diva would when you're singing in, you know, a very intense aria like it is. If you watch like the whole cuts of her, she has a whole routine set out, and cross-cutting between that, she was always really upset about it because of, you know, I'm sure other reasons, but, you know, mostly because, yeah, when you devote that much energy into something that quickly, it's like, well, I want to see it.
right. I still think it's a pretty fantastic performance, considering she's only on screen for about 5-10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
It's more moving. I've been to actual opera, and like actual opera is not good as good as this. You know, like when Corbin, you know, he kind of has that look of shock at the end of the aria on his face. You're like, yeah, I feel you, man. That was incredible.
Well, that was part of Luc Besson's whole reveal. So they shot the reverse in a green screen. All that stuff is there. There are people. They're all in costume. Nobody knew what this alien was going to look like. So when they pulled those curtains back, when they walk out, that's it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so that I just like that idea that, you know, you had to shoot this whole thing in 2 different locations. And when she originally steps out to do that reveal, that's the first time anybody is actually seeing it. And it does look, short from the few times when she leans her head back and the obvious blow up part kind of crinkles a little bit. it's an amazing piece. Like, she's on stilts. There's so much work that has to go into it.
She
Like,
looks like an angelic alien queen. She looks like the queen from Alien, but in angelic form. You know, like if that were the evil version, this is the pure innocent, like good version. You know?
Yeah.
And then they fight.
Here's my question though: had she not been shot in the stomach so conveniently, how was she planning to get the stones to them?
I asked the same thing. I was like,
You don't
how
know
exactly is she
You
gonna
don't
get
know what
this?
those tubes are for. You don't know what those tubes are for.
I'm just saying it's very convenient that he was accidentally shot in the exact place where Bruce Willis needs to stick his hand to get the magical stone out to save the world.
Bruce Willis is really willing to just go in there
Right?
without a second
Dig
thought.
right
He's
in.
like, oh, stick
Sure,
my
why
hand
not? Yeah. Blue alien? Yeah, I'm in there. I'm up in them guts.
Yeah. Sure.
He's a little grossed out, not as grossed out as I would be if I had stuck my hand in an alien, but a little.
Also, at some point, they found time to wash her alien blood off the stones before taking them into the temple. Like, when do they find time to do that?
In my head, I've built this idea that she's enough of a clairvoyant that maybe this was her time to die. And that was her whole purpose of being, was to have this moment. And maybe that's why that performance is so captivating, is because this is my swan song before I have to sacrifice myself to
That's
save
beautiful.
the universe.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, fine. I don't think that Luc Besson actually provided that information to us.
Like the holy armadillos, we just didn't get that backstory.
Well, even if she's stepping in for at the last minute, isn't it super weird to like fridge your wife in a movie?
And then divorce her in the middle of production and marry her.
Absolutely.
So when you mentioned about that being his second wife, I was like, oh, let me look her up. Yeah, they met when she was 12. They got together when she was 15, and they had their first child when she was 16.
Yeah, not a thing for babies.
Yes. His most recent wife is a little more age appropriate. She's like 47 now. And they married in 2004. So she was like 30 something when they got married, when he was like in his 40s then. Because I think he was in 2004, he was like 45, I think. So,
but yeah, inappropriate.
Okay, I just want a dark place where I'm like, oh, I hope he wasn't trying to breed his own like new girl.
And I was like, oh, I do not like you, Luc Besson.
Yeah, he's got
some issues.
He's got a lot of issues.
I mean,
he's been part of the kind of like Me Too call outs in France.
Well, and it makes me so cranky because one of his other films that he produced, Danny the Dog or Unleashed, is another one of my absolute favorite films.
But it's another one of those, and I mean, it's a much larger topic. You can enjoy the art without having to enjoy the art.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially a movie that old.
Hey, we're Harry Potter fans.
I know.
I know.
You separate Harry Potter from the writer.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have to.
Well, you have to. And it's just, there's something different because, especially when it comes to something like this, it's not just him that's involved in making this work so great. You know, what's involved in making this so great is the music, the scoring, the acting, the
5,000 costumes.
Yeah, everybody had an effort in this, and he had like one little role in it, you know? He probably thinks it's a bigger role, but it's still one partial role in it,
and,
you know?
And also there's a point where it becomes bigger than the person,
you
know? And it takes on its own kind of,
like, I wish New York looked like it does in that movie.
Yeah.
With the like cars on different levels, like flying cars on different levels. And I was like, that's so cool.
I'm all for the age of the flying car.
Here's the thing though, and just taking this all into consideration. Let's say that Mel Gibson had taken the role. John Paul Gaultier.
I mean, for God's sakes, his nickname is, what do they call him? It's Ifon's Terrible, or
yeah.
Yes.
And then you have Luc Besson with his little girl fetish. That is a problematic group of men you got.
Yeah.
Yep, totally.
It's at this juncture where our intrepid podcasters go off on a tangent involving several problematic issues with the fashion industry. For your convenience, we have edited out these portions. And now, returning to your podcast.
Right?
Yeah, but I think, again, you can look at it and say his costuming choices were unreal. That
Yes.
just makes the movie. Luc Besson came up with an amazing universe and directed it beautifully. Doesn't mean they are not problematic gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Yep.
I mean, they did have, and I do like the fact that it had legs beyond this film. I mean, it had a direct effect on Fashion Week, where you had people that were taking that style and twisting it to do runway work with what they saw in this film, and even up to I think it was like 6 years ago, that whole bit with the McDonald's ladies and the people coming out, like that's such a homage to this film so many years down the line. Just that kind of stuff that has the legs that it does shows you how, just because he has these kind of instincts, he still can be a shit person. But for instance, I'm going to share this because we're going to have to talk about this, going back to how Prince was supposed to do this. You guys seeing that?
What is that?
That is his original sketch from the early 90s of when
Oh
Prince
my God,
was
so
going to
much
be.
hair. So much hair and so many nipples.
Yes.
But fake hair, not real hair. Oh my God. That's all
Yeah.
like fake hair that's
but
been
look at
added to it.
Look at the bush.
The official story is Prince and his touring schedule just never made it work. But in interviews, Gaultier talked about how he was supposed to meet with Luc Besson and Prince, and when they were getting together, he kind of jumped the gun because Luc Besson hadn't showed up, and his English is terrible. It is just like very broken, and he fully admits this kind of stuff. And he came up to Prince and immediately was just like, "Oh my God, I love you. Here, I have this idea," and just started in broken English explaining all this stuff to a dead silent and probably shocked Prince, who's like, "I don't understand what's happening here." And then he starts showing him these images, like, "Yeah, your ass is going to be this and do that." And apparently he just walked away after that, where they didn't really exchange any kind of,
Yeah, I mean, understandably.
it's interesting to kind of get those perspectives upon that. But he fully admits that he was the asshole in that situation, which is, it's a start.
It's a little bit of growth, a little bit.
Yeah, from the interview, he's like, I showed him my drawings, but he didn't say a word. I had an idea for a really fun costume with netting and long body hair. And of course, to him, he's saying this in all this broken English, where it is like half French and half English. He kept saying fuck cool, and slapping his ass, showing him where the pieces would be.
Oh, Jesus.
And yeah, Prince, according to this quote, gave me this Charlie Chaplin kind of look. I could see that something had just happened, but I didn't know what. Only that he indicated about his bodyguard and he wanted to leave.
And Luc Besson learned a lesson about being late for meetings.
Probably not.
I mean, it is
Probably
it is
he didn't.
interesting.
And I'm
to
like
just...
clutching my face at how horrible that all was.
Yeah.
Could you just imagine like being
For the
approached-
listener.
Yeah, like just being approached to somebody and just having this crazy person just come over and just start fanning photo like, images
I
of
would
you.
like the focus of this scene to be your body hair and your nipples, if you don't mind. Is that cool with you?
And also essentially assaulting him in public.
So maybe it just wasn't ever meant to be. But I mean, do you think that this has the room for a remake? I don't know.
I don't think that they could remake it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so timeless, and 20 years later, it's holding up really well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know that there would be a point in remaking it. Also, I don't really think we make that kind of movie all that much anymore.
I don't think
agree.
there is one. Yeah.
Unless you could franchise it or like.
Well, they tried with Valerian, but Valerian was a huge flop. So I don't see them wanting to remake this at any point in your future.
Yeah. And one of the articles I was reading and had mentioned that, how many ever years on, in what world do you see a major studio saying, yes, let me get an actual couture designer to blow a massive hole in our budget to create literally 1,000 different costumes and like dozens and dozens and dozens of different kind of styles.
I mean, besides Clueless, which did the same thing.
Right. But I just don't see that as happening on that kind of scale for a film like this. I mean, you're talking about a $90 million production. 97 was an amazing year for science fiction. I do not hesitate to say that. I mean, you're talking about Men in Black was one of the largest grossing movies. You had Lost World, Jurassic Park. You had Gattaca. Starship Troopers came out that year. You had a little known Guillermo del Toro come out with like that weird horror science fiction mimic, Contact. And of course, my personal favorite, Leprechaun in Space.
Yeah.
Totally also forgot that Luke Perry was in this.
Oh yeah, for like half a second.
For like the most throwaway role ever.
I remember that more than I remember anything else about this movie.
With Luke Perry?
I think it received really high billing.
I remember seeing it for the first time and going, where has Luke Perry been? And why is he in this? And then why does he die in the first 5 minutes of the movie?
Does he die? I thought he just like
kind
hides
of like
there.
falls
I assume
over.
he died.
Yeah.
I assume everybody in that pyramid thing dies.
Yeah, like
Fair enough.
I felt bad for that one alien dude who got stuck in the thing in the temple.
hey, lives
Well,
don't matter, only time matters.
No, it's no, time does not matter.
Time doesn't matter,
Only
only
lives
life
matter.
Only life matters.
Which, you know, I feel that's a pretty good credo to have, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it still holds up, but I can't imagine a redo. And if it is a redo, I wouldn't want it to be a redo of the content so much. Like I wouldn't want a redo of the story, but I'd love to get a film like this that is as kind of original and inventive, that takes some risks and that, you know.
I also think the other reason this probably couldn't happen, even though we remember the movie as just this kind of mind-blowing science fiction trendsetter, it was a Bruce Willis action movie when it came. That was why people went to see it. And we don't have those kind of celebrities anymore. Not really. You can't.
The Hemsworths, they're cranking out Netflix action movies.
Hemsworths do not put people in seats. Marvel put
Dwayne Johnson puts people in.
Diesel.
I would even argue that The Rock is not a reason people go. Not the way that like Bruce Willis or Schwarzenegger or even Jean-Claude Van Damme were back in the day. Like people went because those were their movies. I think now people go because they know it's going to be a cool franchise action movie. So I don't know that something like The Fifth Element would sell through again because you wouldn't have that star power to carry it.
I think Dwayne Johnson's probably the closest.
Closest, yes.
Or Vin Diesel.
Yeah, what's the movie
I would
he's
see
going to
Vin
be
Diesel.
coming up in? Isn't The Rock doing some movie?
The franchise, and they've
He's
shown
Black Adam. He's
Black Adam. Comic book though. Yeah, totally. You're right.
Yeah.
It's like a
also
franchise thing.
doing
Yeah.
the Jungle Tour movie.
Oh my God. That is just
That's going to be
for
all kinds of problematic.
that is the most it still exists as a ride that you can go on.
And it's so
Or racist.
so racist.
Most racist actual ride that you can go on.
Once again, our intrepid podcasters have now diverted into problematic theme rides. For your convenience, we have edited out these portions. And now, returning to your podcast.
I think I might have blocked it out because it was so horrific.
It's so bad.
Oh, it's a small world and like, hello cultural stereotypes.
I don't know if anybody knew this. Walt Disney, also problematic.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They just need to turn one of those rides into.
I think we've lost our train of thought here.
Yeah,
Little bit.
You're right. We're now into like
I think no, we're still in the general
century colonialism.
would not
instead
be fun anymore.
Wait, so where does the Yeti come in?
That's a different ride.
Ah, damn it.
That's all of it.
Well, I think we've all kind of come to the consensus that this definitely is
Holds
still
up.
fun.
Still fun.
It
still
does.
fun. Absolutely.
I would
so
still recommend it to
fun.
people. I would let my hypothetical teenage girl, daughter, child watch it.
In college, I had a film studies class, and I used this as one of the examples of not perfect in the sense of it being like, you know, filmography wise and everything, and you know, culturally wise, but perfect in the sense that it followed the storyline pattern of what a film needs to do. In that Act 1, it hits this point. Act 2, it hits this point. Act 3 is when this point comes, and like the story that the hero follows is accurate.
Just don't worry about any of that exposition stuff that makes no
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. but just like
That's
the
why they go
storyline of
through
the
it so
hero
fast.
and like
This is why they go through it so
the critical moment when he realizes what he needs to do
There is
and where
very-
it falls.
There really is very little exposition in this.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Like,
honestly,
You
so
have
but
to figure it out.
Corbin
It makes
Dallas does not have that much of an art, guys.
No.
No.
No. And the movie makes no sense. If you look at it from an actual plot standpoint, it makes no sense. It doesn't matter because it's so pretty and so fun.
No, you're right.
But
it
it makes no sense.
It is the ultimate suspension of disbelief go along with the ride thing.
Yeah.
Right? You just get totally carried away by it.
And then you go at the end and you're like, oh, I get it. There were 4 elements and you blow on the thing and you drip some sweat.
Love is the fifth
I got it.
element.
I understand.
Love is the fifth one. That's the true power.
Oh, can I just say, why did it take her getting to W to figure out how shitty humans were?
This was
I'm sorry, can I not talk? Apartheid!
Slavery.
Racism.
Designed to be a weapon.
We noticed she didn't open all of them. She only opened like martial arts. She only opened some of them. So she was just learning the words for all that other stuff. She didn't actually understand it.
That whole scene pissed me. It was as bad as Padme dying of like
broken heart.
Dying of a broken heart. I'm like, what?
It took you this long?
You were designed to be a weapon. What is your problem? Like, you know how this is what happens. But she's so sad because nobody loves her.
He's like, oh, people are shit. What am I fighting for? I don't know.
I mean, I'm not going to argue.
And the love of somebody she's had like maybe 20 minutes of screen time with over the course of 2 days changes everything.
Yep.
Yeah, but Bruce Willis though.
But even
Bruce Willis though.
I mean,
but Bruce Willis though.
She's literally the perfect person. She can do better than even Bruce Willis.
She can. Yeah, she can.
True. Yeah.
But she's really only met 3 people. So
Right.
of those
And she's
three,
like, of these
it's
3 people.
Lilu, she could totally do
The
better than
priest-
Bruce
She can't do
Willis.
better than Bruce
priest assistant and Bruce Willis. Those are her choices. And if that's the case, Bruce Willis is the best option.
Willis.
Sure.
True.
Yeah, David, the priest assistant, is gangly.
So
and weird.
awkward. Bless his heart.
He's got the like tiniest Devo hat on his head.
I like when they interrupt him, he's just hiding in the back, listening to his music, sewing something.
That's a hair yarmulke.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Also, just I want to do one like little shout out because I particularly love Ian Holm in this movie.
I
Yes.
do too. Totally.
Horrible.
He is absolutely another one of those actors that is so good at being comedic.
Mm-hmm.
And just those little moments like the itza. It works so well.
Isn't he like one of those like classically trained actors? I always feel like the classically trained actors
No
no
comedy.
comedy because
Yeah.
you have to, you know,
Well,
like
they
in
know
order to
time.
actually understand and properly commit to comedy, you also need to know tragedy, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's why he's so hilarious.
Yeah.
He's great.
And while I appreciate Gary Oldman, it's very obvious that he was doing this as a favor.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, totally. But from the accent, when he's throwing that like corn pone accent, I was like, oh, Gary Oldman, you're having fun with this one, aren't you?
0 crates, 0 stones. Just that little wispiness and he's so much fun. But yeah, he's been on record saying like, I wasn't really trying on that. Which is fair. He still knocks it out of the park whenever he's whenever he's there.
Doesn't need to. It didn't need to be like, you know,
No,
you
I
need a
think
lot of
because-
depth on the evil world-shattering CEO.
No.
It's fine.
And also problematic. All the men in this, all of them, except Ian Holm. Go Ian Holm.
Go Ian Holm.
Is Bruce Willis problematic?
I think Bruce is okay.
No, he's okay. He's okay. He just likes playing terrible harmonica music. That's all.
Yeah.
Hey, that's Bruno you're talking about.
It is, yes.
Well, I think that's about the place to end this one.
Yay.
I'm glad that I can still watch this and get teary when I listen to the diva.
Whenever it's on television, I always watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.